I'm excited with Julian to be here today to talk to you about social CRM and CRM, the 2 + 2 = 5 equation. I'm going to kick off just very quickly introducing the customer framework, and then we'll get into our content. The customer framework, or TCF, is a leading management and marketing consultancy, and we specialize in helping large organizations with their customer management, their engagement marketing, and their CRM activities. We have a range of methodologies and IP, and we'll be taking you through some of the insights that we've gathered from our clients in this short presentation today. So, what are we going to cover this evening? We're going to be taking you through our views on the role of CRM 2.0, more commonly called now SCRM or Social CRM, and introducing the concept of the social business and the role that the social business plays in today's world. We'll look at some of the key pressure points and implications for change within your businesses and agencies. And we're going to show you some examples of best practice from some of our clients and some of the clients and agencies and brands that we respect out there at the moment. Back to the future is one of our key themes for this presentation. The idea that to excel in the socially driven future, brands have to think back to the traditional CRM proven practices of days gone by when they combine that with the social emphasis that we're all seeing today. And it really is about the merging of those two areas. So in theory, the hypothesis that we see from clients is very simple. The idea that a brand is doing social marketing on one side of the business and active and engaged in CRM in the other side of the business. Many brands see that as long as they're engaged and active in these two sides of marketing, they are active in social CRM. They also, in some brands, think that actually it's about parking CRM to one side and focusing wholly on the area of social marketing and social media. And what we're going to propose today is that, unfortunately, that view of social CRM is not quite as simple as it sounds. Does anybody in the room recognize these two guys up here? You probably all recognize Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook founder on the left. Anybody recognize the guy on the right? Absolutely. It is indeed Lester Wunderman, founder of the Wunderman Network. I actually met Lester about 3 weeks ago in the States, and never have I heard somebody so old, in fact, someone of his stature, talk so eloquently about social marketing, about digital and interactive marketing, and how it applies to the world of CRM. So our theory is very much that to excel in the social future, brands and agencies have to think about the proven best practices from CRM 1.0 and very much focus on the 80-20 rule, the idea that 80% of revenue and sales can come from 20% of consumers. Similarly, the new world of social marketing can also learn a huge amount from the world of CRM 1.0, some of those proven practices and theories. And ultimately, a combination of these two is what we mean when we talk about 2 and 2 = 5. Impactful conversations and consumer connection will come from a merging and combination of 1.0 and 2.0. Social CRM means a focus not just on it's a focus on interactions and not just on transactions. The world of CRM 1.0 was very much focused on the internal automation of sales processes, very focused on the internal business, whereas CRM 2.0 is focused still on those internal processes, but it's overlaying a focus now on conversation tools, on listening to consumers, on monitoring and actually understanding consumers and applying that to how we connect with our consumer base. Whereas CRM 1.0 was focused on a brand or a client pushing messages out to consumers, CRM 2.0 is far more concerned with listening. One of the leading commentators in this space, Paul Greenberg, has said that social CRM is about the conversation process, not just the transaction process. And what this suggests and what we're driving is that this means, the implication of this is that all marketeers are becoming relationship marketeers, that all marketeers have to understand data-driven marketing, precision marketing, and how they apply that. And here you see the CEO of Procter & Gamble talking about the next big thing being any medium that is driving relationships, one-to-one relationships, with consumers. And that can be in the social space, it can be through email, it can be online, and of course offline. And they're talking at P&G about having a one-to-one relationship with everybody. And by that, they obviously mean talking through a one-to-one relationship through all of their marketing. All of their marketing is about connecting with consumers, knowing more about their consumers. However, that sounds great in principle, but in our experience and talking to brands, there's often a brick wall between, on the one side, the traditional CRM team, traditionally focused on structured personal data, and often the other team on the right-hand side, the social marketing team, who are often removed from each other. Focusing ideally on unstructured data, social analytics, insights from listening. And unfortunately, although both are focused on building consumer relationships, often never the twain shall meet. To get rid of that brick wall, to break down these barriers between these two teams, our view is that data is the factor that brings them together. It's the asset that all brands and all clients need to think about in a strategic way. And that is what SCRM, social CRM, is really about. Social, therefore, is not an alternative to CRM. What we've often seen is brands thinking about building a fan base, what sometimes has been called an earned database. So out there in the earned social spaces, trying to build up a fan base, but not applying any of those principles around value of consumers, knowing who are the most important consumers. So we'd like to define social CRM as a part of a social business strategy, an overarching business strategy that helps companies make sense of and crucially act on the insights that come and the data that comes from those social consumer interactions. So we're talking about data a lot here. Let's talk about the types of data and the sources of data that we're talking about. Now, most brands are fairly comfortable with profile data, PII data, name, address, date of birth, etc. And many brands are also very comfortable with transactional data, purchase data, POS, consumption, what have you. But the focus right now is on driving more insight from behavioral data. And by that we mean data around preferences and sentiment and brand affinity. This behavioral data can come from owned assets that a brand has. On the left-hand side here, you see some brand websites from Starbucks, Pampers. On the right-hand side, we have a focus on community sites that a brand owns, for example, Sony. Data, community data and social data can be then appended into a brand's database. Then we also have a focus on social data. And that, of course, can come from social media activities, social analytics, or it can come from companies like Rapleaf, Flowtown, and Clout, who are now very active in understanding influence scores of consumers, and then applying those influence scores, how influential a consumer is, back onto the database at the individual level. So really, social CRM cannot be feasible, cannot be delivered without a strong focus on data. And it's really bringing these two together, as I've just shown, that's key. And the glue, the connecting thread that brings these two together is this concept of the social business. A social business is an interesting concept. What do we mean when we talk about a social business? Basically, we mean a business here that is combining that structured and unstructured data to drive insight, that is briefing engagement as the strategic objective in its marketing briefs. It's not briefing channels, it's not briefing a focus on one individual marketing objective, but it's briefing engagement. They recognize the value of influencers and their high-value consumers. They understand the 80-20 rule, and they go after that 20% ruthlessly. They encourage participation and co-creation amongst their consumers. They're actively open in wanting to understand how consumers can shape marketing campaigns, product innovation. And they're thinking about marketing as an always-on, 52-week activity. We'll show later how social is about moving away from a campaign-focused, on and off approach, and it really is about thinking about 365 days always-on marketing that's focused on delivering content, value-adding content to consumers. And finally, a social business is one that learns from interactions and responds. It listens, it learns, and then it acts. Often what we see in activity out there now is ultimately an approach that's quite tactical. We speak to brands and we hear about social media strategies, which ultimately ends up being a Facebook page, a YouTube channel, or a Twitter channel. And they ultimately are merely tactics. They're tactics that have to be congratulated in terms of their getting out there and trying, but what we're finding is they're not often tied back to a business strategy. So what we're proposing and what we're driving is a focus on social business planning. We're doing a lot of work now with Coca-Cola in this space, actually looking at how can we apply a focus on social business across all brand teams, where we start off with a consumer-centric vision, we then drive through to a consumer engagement strategy, we have briefs that are all about engaging consumers across multiple touch points, and then engagement programs that are then delivered and executed based on data. Data, unstructured and structured data, that lets you deliver a consumer experience across channels. Crucially, these experiences aren't delivered just through those social channels, but they're actually integrating brand-bought and brand-owned media, above-the-line advertising, and then email, websites, etc., alongside their social activity. And this is the approach to 360 thinking that drives us to connections plans as opposed to just media plans. All of that is backed up by technology and technology platforms. We won't talk today about all of the options that brands face when it comes to technology, vendors in community management, vendors in delivering databases and campaign management solutions. But technology is very, very important to delivering an integrated approach across owned, bought, and earned channels. That then delivers consumer engagement. And Julian will talk shortly about the importance of how we then measure and how we then analyze the success of these engagement-focused programs. Crucially, it's also key to look at how the learnings from these activities are then shared across the business. And we're doing a whole load of work with our clients looking at how knowledge is shared across different brand teams and from market to market. That's often something we find that's missing, where brands are all trying the same things but in different markets. So there's a real focus and need in a social business to think about sharing of learnings. So, social CRM needs a focus on strategy, on people, and enablers. If we think back to CRM 1.0, often brands went about just implementing a piece of technology and assumed that it was job done. SAP, Siebel were put into place, and CRM was assumed just to happen. And actually what we're finding now is that technology is still very important. It's a key enabler, but it's probably about 20% of the solution. 50% of the solution has to be about people. And Julian will talk about organization structure and capability build. And 30% or so is around strategy and process, and the need to put in place, as we said, that consumer-centric vision and that social CRM strategy. That's what will drive us towards success.